Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Brewing Business Show. This is a space dedicated to the craft beer industry and entrepreneurs who wants to learn more about mindset, health, wealth, business, and of course, beer. I'm your host, Pedro Meneses, and before we start, I just want to make sure you buckle up, crack open a cold one, and get ready to hear some life-changing information. Cheers. Well, welcome back, everybody, to episode 43 of the Brewing Business Show. If this is your first time, be sure to check out the previous episodes. And don't forget to leave me that review, guys, so more people can find the show. And today, I'm pretty excited because it's going to be a good episode. It's going to be a very, very fun episode full of energy because my guest today is someone who not only I admire him because of his spirit of serving others and going above and beyond to help other people, but he always keeps that positive energy. He's always that person who brings the full energy into the room. And today he's here to share his story, to motivate us, and to give us some good advice, man. So welcome to the show, my Danny, pinche Danny. Welcome to the show, bro.
Man. That's awesome. Thank you, Pedro. I know, it's an honor to be on your show. And it's funny because, we've known each other for what? It's been a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, been a little bit over 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Like, we met back in, well, technically it was on Facebook. Everybody meets on Facebook nowadays.
Yeah, so, that's true.
Right? So, it was back, I think we were looking for volunteers for $1 Million Mastermind.
Yeah, exactly that what it was. I had just a couple months that I joined Apex. So yeah, I think that was the first conversation you and me had.
Yeah, you were fresh, you were brand new in, and I was like, hey, yeah, let's see what we're gonna do. And basically, you and Kayla flew in for a couple of days for the mastermind, and you volunteered to work, to do what was ever required. And you guys brought the heat, man. That event wouldn't have gone off as easily as it did without you guys, because you guys were dragging boxes of swag and managing the table and working with the clients that were coming in. So I don't even remember if you guys even got a chance to watch any of the $1 Million Mastermind.
Oh no, we did, man. Because me and Kayla, we're here to get shit done. So we get done what has to be done, and we enjoy the mastermind, man. That was a great experience, man. It definitely changed my life.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, I forgot what we did. I think we were so, I don't want to call it desperation, but when you just really need people that get it to jump in with you and go all in, it's a very unique thing to have happen. So when it happens, you're like, I'll give you whatever you want. Right.
Right.
And it's, in lieu of $1 million, I think we, hooked up some training and programs for you too. So
yeah, no, that was awesome, man. But hey, man, we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. And you and me, we always have a good conversation, especially when we're having a beer, man. Those conversations are the best conversations ever. So I was like, you know what? We need to bring that conversation to the show because I know somebody out there can get inspired and can get some value out of it, man. So, but before we get to that, man, why don't you go ahead and share a little about your story, where you come from, and why you have accomplished, man, so far.
Awesome. Yeah, let's talk about that. I appreciate that. And again, thanks for having me on. So my name's Danny Galvez, and
Pinche Danny Galvez.
Pinche Danny. Yeah, they call me Pinche Danny. So if you don't speak Spanish, it's fucking Danny. And it's kind of a moniker that I picked up in Spanish and in English. So in English, it's damn it, Danny. But in Spanish, it's fucking Danny. So Pinche Danny.
Right.
But it's funny. That was one of the first things I said. Currently at Break Free Academy, I call myself the Chief Happiness Officer. In truth, there's a lot of different things that I do, but we'll get to that later on. When I first got here, I basically said, listen, if anything breaks, if anything goes wrong, all you have to do is blame me. Because
right.
I'm telling you, people will accept anything that you have to give them, no matter what the situation is. The number one thing I would tell people right now, get used to delivering bad news and delivering it first. If you can do that, you'll have the most success that you could ever want in your life. So kind of go back to childhood. Let's start there. I'm the eldest of 5 kids. I was raised in a military family. My father served in the Marine Corps, and 20 years of that's what he did. So 17 of that, I was there for that. We were very regimented. I didn't have long hair at that time. Wasn't allowed to. I didn't even have a beard. So that was another thing.
I'm glad you grew one.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to grow one at 10, but it just didn't come in, I was raised in a military family. We were raised Catholic, very regimented in our home life and our family life and our spiritual life. Always worked out, was fit, played baseball, football, soccer. There's a lot of stuff that I did. Didn't get into too much trouble. I wasn't a bad kid. I'd always listen because I got my ass whooped a lot as a kid with the belt. So we'll kind of talk about that in a minute. But the main thing that that I took from that was like, number one, I didn't like getting my ass whooped. But the second was like, if anybody wants to come and whoop my ass, they're gonna have to try really hard to hurt me because I've already had my ass whooped. So it's kind of a good start to life, and I learned a lot in that process. I lived in close quarters with my brothers. You know, me and my brothers shared an add-on garage, and we lived in North Carolina for most of our lives. So we shared it was a 3-bed room that we actually shared. So it was one garage, and it was converted into a bedroom, and that's where I lived for a good 8 years. So it was good. We lived on a corner lot. It was North Carolina. It was hot, kind of like Texas is. And
but it gets cold too.
Yeah, it does get cold. It actually snowed there a couple of times when I was in North Carolina. So, but coming from that, like we got to hang out in North Carolina, Hawaii. That was another destination. California, lived in Japan for a little bit. Guam, I was there for a minute. I don't remember much of that, but we got to live some cool places and ended up going to Wisconsin and Minnesota after that. So I was about 18. I went to Minnesota to Wisconsin to graduate from high school. From there, I ended up going to college for a little bit, decided it wasn't for me. And so I dropped out. And the thing that I thought was this: I went home for 6 months. Number one, I didn't want to go home. I hated being at home. Like, you know, my parents were like, listen, you're not too old to whoop. So, and I was like, you know, at that point I was 19 years old, had a taste of freedom in the world, and I loved it. And I was just really restless. I couldn't settle down, but I knew that college wasn't going to be the path for me. Number one, I didn't have the patience. And number two, I didn't have the financial resources. I was basically left. When you have a large family, at that point, military family, we didn't have a lot of money. So, you know, my family was like, look, if you want to go to college, you're going to have to pay for it yourself. I'm like, okay, that's cool, because I've been paying for my deodorant, my shoes, and all my clothes this whole time anyways. So no problem. But I learned pretty quickly that college was bullshit for me. And I just didn't have the attention span. And I was trying to balance being free in the world for the first time after being on lockdown. Like, y'all think the pandemic's something? I was on lockdown for a majority of my life for the first 17 years. And then when I broke loose, I was like, they called me pinche puto Danny. So, you know, I got crazy, man. I'm not going to lie. But I left my house, and I found a tech school. After I returned home, I sat home for 6 months. I took a job as a dairy manager at a local IGA, and was making $6 an hour. And I felt like a loser. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm living at home with my parents again. And so I got hold of the counselor at high school and said, hey, listen, I really want to explore some technical schools. I know I've been graduated for a year now, but what can you tell me? She's like, let me tell you about this college called Brown Institute. So I checked out Brown Institute, and they had a radio program, and they also had a scholarship for that radio program. And that year they had 2 scholarships they gave away. One was for the Southfield, Michigan location. The other one was for Minneapolis, Minnesota, which was closer to me. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to take a run at it. And what I did was I made a demo tape. Did you ever have a cassette player growing up?
Hell yeah. I'm not young.
I don't know. Like, some people are like, ew, cassette tapes. But yeah, cassette tapes, they used to put music on them. And what I did was I took my stereo that we had, and I took another jukebox. Like, I had like 2 different recording devices, and I was smart enough to put together how to record a tape. So I'd play music on one, I would talk over this one and do a microphone, and then I would just go back and double back and play back over it. So what I did was, part of my audition, I had to tell, you know, like, who influenced me the most. At the time, it was my stepmom. I was inspired by her because she took on this whole big family unit and this craziness. And my father would be gone on deployments, and she'd be left at home with 5 kids for 6 months at a time. So I had a lot of respect. She taught me how to write beautifully. Like, she taught me how to, you know, create beautiful penmanship. And she was always there for us. She was a friend, and she taught me how to cook. She taught me how to clean. She taught me how to do a lot of the things that I know how to do. And I enjoyed that. So long story short, I win the scholarship.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. So I'm 4 months into my 6-month stay at the house, and I'm like, thank God I won. My father comes in the door after work one day. He goes, "Oh, by the way," he goes, "the lady called and she said that you won the scholarship thing." And he was very passive, like very just flippant about it.
Right.
And I remember being hurt that day. Pedro, it's kind of like when you work really hard for something, what he didn't know is that that was the only scholarship they were giving away for the school that year.
Wow.
And I won the motherfucker. And that right there, that let me know, hey, you know what, Danny? You're onto something.
Right.
And you know what? You're going to have to be the one that claps for yourself.
Yeah.
And now you're going to have to clap for other people. Because I would never want anyone to experience that ever in their lives.
Wow.
And it's been the thing that's driven me from that point in everything that I've done in my life.
That's crazy, man.
It is crazy. I was happy. I went on, became a radio DJ. I worked in multiple formats. I worked in a country music format, hip hop station. I worked for, they called it contemporary hit radio. So like pop music. I got to be on a morning show. They called me Dan Francisco in the morning.
That's hilarious.
It was great. It was great. When I think that was the most fun job. It was at a station called Z100 in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And I worked, this morning show I was on was called the Al Shannon in the morning show. And I went streaking naked one morning through a busy intersection.
Oh, wow.
I just had my underwear on, and it was cold. It was probably about 30 degrees because it was Wisconsin. But what we didn't plan on was that there were going to be kids being taken to school during that time. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I went streaking. Basically, I did 4 corners around an intersection and ended up back at the Walgreens. The cops were looking for me, and I didn't realize that. Like, I got dressed real fast after I did the run. I got dressed right in the back of the Jeep. We had a Hummer. You ever see the old body Hummers?
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah. So we had one of those. It was painted bright yellow, had Z100 on the side of it, and it was pretty cool. But I had a good time. I didn't get arrested that day, thank God. Never got arrested.
Thank God.
Yeah. So it was cool. But that was kind of like the beginning iterations of my career, and just a little story behind why I do what I do. And I know it doesn't make sense for a lot of people, but that one defining moment, and you and I have talked about that a lot.
Yeah. But it is important, man. It is important to revisit those places because, like you said, that's what makes you those defining moments is what define the rest of your life. Like I remember I had moments like that too. Like I remember when my dad told me you're never gonna be able to fucking open a business. It's like really my response to him was fuck you. Like, and I did. I already asked for forgiveness, but I really talked to my dad like that at that point. It's like. Nobody's going to tell me I'm not going to allow nobody to tell me that I cannot do X, Y, Z, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want with my life, and here I am now, but it's important, man, because when you forget about those defining moments, and then you start losing track of your life, it's important to keep things like that present. Yeah, you have to forgive little things in the past that hurt you, but you always have to remember, sometimes look in the back, look to the back, to your past sometimes, to realize what has been pushing you to be where you are today in life.
Yeah. And I love your story just because you're like, I had it all. I had the beaches, I had the bitches, I had the whatever I want, daddy's money, and that empty spot. I tell a lot of people about that story that you shared with me. And because that 9 times out of 10, like, who would walk away from that, right? Who would walk away from that life, right? And say, you know what, I'm going to go out here and make it on my own. Just number one, to say fuck you because I like that word. And then number 2, to prove my point, to say fuck you again later on when I get it done, right?
Because I love that word.
Yeah, because I love that word. Yeah, you and I are the same like that. So, and that was kind of my fuck you. Like, my whole life has not been lived on a fuck you, and it's not associated with negative things. But I think for the longest time, probably well into my 30s, it was a fuck you. But that underlying factor was the thing that kept me going. So when radio came to a close for me, my career, I was in there about 17 years, pretty much. I became a copywriter. I was a producer and editor. I was well loved and well received in every community I went to. I lived and worked in Houston for a little bit. I worked in Conroe. I worked in Northfield, Minnesota, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And then I went up to Longview, Texas, which is east of Dallas, by about 2.5 hours, and I stayed there. So, but after that was done, I went into the mortgage industry, and I learned that business from the ground up. And that kind of, it's pretty interesting for me. I was here walking into a new world. I was making $9 an hour. That was like the base pay. Yeah. So like in radio, like, I don't know if they pay this kind of money anymore. They probably don't. But when I first started, I think I topped out at about $45,000 a year.
Wow.
And man, I was doing good. I was like, man, I'm making good money. I got a good job. I got benefits. I got all the love that I could want. I get to meet famous people. I got to meet Miranda Lambert and Blake Shelton and Casey Musgraves. I got to meet Neil McCoy, and then I got to meet Justin Timberlake and a whole bunch of other people. Jody Watley.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. Casey and JoJo from the 90s, man, it was Backstreet Boys. I got to see them in concert just from working at a radio station. But and somebody's probably, I know there's somebody going, who the fuck are those people? We don't know who they are.
Right.
You might know Blake Shelton and maybe, like Justin
but they
Timberlake.
for sure know who the Backstreet Boys are.
Oh, they do. Everybody. Yeah. Right. Come on, Pedro.
Rock your body.
Yeah. Everybody.
Rock your body now.
That's rock your body, rock Backstreet.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
All right.
I think we should start a boy band for bearded dudes. That's what I think.
I know. That's what we need to do, man. That was hilarious. That's gonna be a fun moment in this episode. Oh, yeah. That's Esther.
Esther agrees with us. Yeah. So.
Absolutely.
So that was, I was excited to be able to partake in that. And I, gladly accepted that challenge. And was like, hey, listen, you're going to have to start over again. You're going to have to learn a whole new industry. And you're going to have to, it's either sink or swim. Right. So I gladly accepted it. And it was my first job in mortgage was to work at the front desk. And my job was to follow up with all of our clients. My job was to go through the files and basically learn the business and learn the terminology and everything that I was doing. That was it. I did that for about 4 years. I called myself the man assistant. So I would assist in marketing activities. I had DJ equipment that I had invested in after my radio days because I figured, well, I can go make more money DJing as a mobile DJ for weddings, and parties. So I got that as my side hustle. At this point, I was already 2 more children into my life, and they were young yet. So my focus was to focus on supporting my family. That was the only thing I was focused on. Work and supporting my family. So I learned pretty quick, and within a short order of time, I was doing very well. I remember the first big check that I'd gotten in mortgage was $8,000. And that was just from one pay period. I was like, oh man, we're getting paid again this month. I was excited.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, my efforts, I think it took me probably about 3 years to get to that place. But it was a culmination of hard work, kind of like what you do, Yeah. Start from the ground. You plant all of the seeds. You stay consistent in the actions that you're taking. And you get to that place where it's almost like, and when you and I were talking about this offline before we got started, but it's like a culmination of all of your work that you've done a year ago starts to show up a year later.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of momentum to get to that place. So fast forward a little bit. I'm in the mortgage industry about 8 years at this point. And maybe 7 years, we get stuck because we stopped being able to transact business. I was calling 70 agents every Monday. Hey, what's up? It's Danny at XYZ Mortgage. How's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Right? And I'd be asking them for business. And then it got to a point where I was begging them for business. And it got to be exhausting. It was predictable, and they didn't like me anymore. And there are some other things happening with people in the company at that time, but what ended up happening was we came to the conclusion that we needed to get onto social media.
Right.
That was important. That was the missing piece. I'd always get my ass chewed. They'd be like, Danny, what the fuck are you doing on social media? I'm like, fuck you. I'm following your agents. What do you mean? I sent her flowers on behalf of the team because her dog just died. If you were on social media, you would fucking know that, right?
Right. Well, it's true.
Something as simple as, think about it, right? Like how would somebody know, who's paying attention? Because of that one gesture, because I did that got us shouted out. It got us more referrals. People started paying attention to us as a mortgage company. And Pedro, you understand, I think you're probably one of the few people that can make mortgage, real estate sexy, with your branding of Pedro Meneses and the beard and everything. I think people are like, fuck, that's cool. That makes me want to buy a house. That dude's got a beard. So manly. I want to buy a house, right?
Hell
So, but
yeah.
like your branding's on point, but it was the same challenge we had with mortgage. It's like, how do we make this sexy? Because it's not sexy.
Right.
It can be a stressful process. It can be a stressful time constraint. There are a lot of factors and circumstances that have to line up in a very short order of time. So, but we ended up getting plugged in with Ryan Stewman at Break Free Academy,
Right.
and it was good. It was a good situation. So it was. I don't want to like talk over on this, but like there's when we met Ryan, that was the one thing that we needed to have happen to be able to get us to that next level.
Right.
And I remember the first time I met him was on a Zoom call like this. We weren't accustomed to using Zoom or anything of that nature. Ring Central, I think we used Ring Central at that time, their broadcast rooms, but we didn't have that part of our business plugged in. We
Right.
were not tech savvy, so to speak. We had some technical skills, but we weren't utilizing the technology available to us because we were trying to stay stuck in the old ways of doing things.
Wow.
And the fact of the matter is, like, people were passing us by. So at the point that we met Ryan, it changed things quite a
Right.
bit. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So
No, but you know, I've been seeing this pattern that you were mentioning, man. It just reminded me that, I mean, that's pretty much how everything goes in life. You know, like you started here when you were trying to get the scholarship, right? And then you have to face some hardship and some issues, and then you know that then you find the opportunity to go to the next level, and then you go to radio, and then from radio you face the same situation, got to a point of, okay, it's time to go to the next level, and then you find that next opportunity, and then you move to mortgages, and then from mortgages now you're here. But what I'm trying to say is that people don't understand that, you know, people see the hardships, people see the troubles, and they right away start quitting, start bitching, and start like, why is this happening to me? When in reality, it's an opportunity for you to level up. You know, like you're not the same person you were 20 years ago.
no,
Right.
I'm not. Actually, I think I'm better than I was 20 years ago. And it's funny, you know, because like the people that knew you 20 years ago, no matter how they've seen you grow, sometimes they can be your force of average. They can want to
Yeah.
keep you pigeonholed in that same place, right? Like there's somebody that probably thinks, oh, there's fucking Pedro, like he's a spoiled little rich kid and shit, living on his daddy's money. There are people that actually still think that about you, right?
Oh yeah.
But like for me, like even my brother, you know, I love him to death, but he's always watching me. Because here's the thing, people always share with you what they think of you, whether they tell you directly or not. If you listen to the conversation, just the slight comments, but like in his mind, he's thinking I'm the Danny from 20 years ago, right? Running rampant in the streets like a wild man, trying to catch everybody that I could, acting like a hoe out here. And I say it like that because, you know, I mean, yeah, I was running crazy, wild and free. Like I didn't understand constraint. I didn't understand restraints. I wasn't focused the way that I needed to be. So,
Absolutely.
you know, life has a way of doing that for you where you're forced to level up. You have to have serious conversations with yourself. You might have to go shovel shit. You might have to do things that bring you back down to your knees and humble you a little bit. And believe me, when I tell you this, accept those opportunities and accept those challenges, because in those moments, in those processes, that's where you're really going to get dialed in to who the fuck you really are. You will. It happens every time. I'm still learning things about myself, Pedro. I'm 45 years old. I've got 3 kids and 1 grandchild. My oldest son, he's 21. He calls me up. You know what's great about that?
What?
He's asking me for advice. And I love that because I didn't have that.
Right. No, that's awesome, man. That's really powerful.
You know?
That's very powerful. And you know, the other thing that I see, and I want you to talk a little bit about this here in a second, but 2 things, right? First, you mentioned how you were staying behind, you know, how the competition was winning the game because you were not willing to innovate yourself, right? Until you start utilizing social media, until you connected with people that was doing new things in business, right? That's how you put yourself back in the game. But at the same time, man, I see a lot of people, when you go through different stage in life, right? It's like you look at different things like, what a waste of time, right? Like, for example, let's use this as an example. When you went into radio, right? At some point, that's something that I don't know if at some point you thought, well, probably this is never going to serve me again. But at this point, it's still helps you because now you do audiobooks and you record all this for people, right? So how do you feel that transition from looking yourself like, okay, I was doing radio, but I never expect to do something like this, but now that skill that is helping me to record audiobooks for very successful entrepreneurs?
Yeah, think about it. I mean, all of the skills that I learned in radio, like I remember being a child and saying this when I was 15. I was like, when I'm older, I'm going to be a DJ on the radio. And I became that. I spoke it
Right.
into existence, right? All of those skills that I learned during that time, I've been able to use and parlay into every single thing that I've done in my life, whether it be waiting tables, whether it be, and that's like crafting the message, the offer, right? What are
Right.
today's specials? Well, today we have couscous, right? You know, it's bartending, same thing, right? What's the featured drink? I'm crafting an offer. I want it to be enticing. I learned how to write copy. I learned how to communicate at a high level with other entrepreneurs and business owners, right?
Yeah.
I had to learn and have those discussions at a very high level with people that operated businesses, very successful businesses. I had to work with people that were working with entrepreneurs that were managing $300,000-$400,000 budgets a month. At that time, I was like, holy smokes, that's crazy. You know, that's how much they had in their ad spend. But I got acclimated and used to DJing in person and on the radio. So I had to plan and prep and prepare. And that's the same thing as it applies to business, even now. So same thing with books, like all the work that I did, all of the editing, all the time in the studio, the time when everybody went home and thought, you know, oh my God, you're such a sexy DJ. That must be a great job. No, my ass was in the studio preparing for the future. It was the only thing that would have allowed me to go from radio to mortgage to audiobooks to mobile DJ service, right?
Yeah.
Into an opportunity when it presented itself, which is Break Free Academy now. Right. So, and not only that, it goes deeper than that. It goes into business development, consulting, marketing. We're building websites. We're showing people how to put together their back-end processes. You know how to do a lot of this stuff too. Like this is the very thing that you've been doing for the last few years, is just getting in there and getting your hands dirty and learning everything you can. Like, you know, like, those memes, I like the memes with the cats going.
Yeah.
So that's what you've been like the last couple of years. And I took that experience. You know, one of the most important lessons I learned from a professor at the vocational school I went to in radio was this man he'd been on the radio for 25, 30 years. And I remember him saying, he said, listen, when you get your next job in radio, you need to start looking for your next job because there are no guarantees. And the second thing is nobody cares. Fame is not real. Who you are to them is only based on that moment, because before you know it, they're going to bring somebody new in. They're going to bring somebody in to freshen things up. So you have to stay on point. You have to stay sharp. You've got to get dialed in on your systems and processes, and don't get married to one thing, especially as it pertains to technology. The way that we're communicating is ever changing.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Pretty soon we won't have to communicate with our mouths. We're already doing it. We're using our thumbs. I'm surprised our thumbs aren't bigger. So.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. But you know, that's a very important lesson right there, man, because like you said, it is about keep just doing the work and keep investing in yourself. And that's why you're here. I mean, that's what all of us in our group and in the people we surround ourselves with, like, that's why you see people growing every single day. They're growing, you know? And like you said, like that guy told you, you know, once you find this job, you start seeking for the next job. And it's pretty much like in business, right? Just because you close the deal today, it doesn't finish there. You have to start seeking for your next deal, you know, for the next business you can build, the next opportunity that you can, the next venture that you can join or something, you know. And a lot of people make that mistake just because they reach some certain level of success. They're like, okay, it's over. When in reality, it's not over yet, you know. Like this is, like I always say, is a progression, not perfection.
That's right. Yeah, and here's the thing, like, you know, the investment that you make with your time, it's very important. And, you know, I've learned some hard lessons. You know, I was in a situation where I went all in on just one area of my life.
Yeah.
And I fucked up the other parts of my life, right? I could have done a better job being married. I could have been a better husband. But you know what I did? I focused all on work because I thought money was the thing that was necessary. And if I just had money, like, that would be the thing. That's what I was chasing. I chased the money. And it was to my detriment. And, you know, no harm, no foul. Like it worked out pretty good. I'll tell you this, that like you have to pay attention to those lessons. And we talk about balance a lot, but if you love what you do, everything's going to be evenly distributed. I think that's probably a better term that you're probably looking for in your life in terms of not balance. You want even distribution. So I'll tell you this, sitting down at 5 o'clock to eat dinner is boring as fuck to me. Sitting in bed at 10 o'clock reading a book sounds boring as fuck to me, right?
Yeah.
I'm just not that person. But you can have a good, even distribution of the way that you spend your time and your energies. So the way that you're doing those, like go to work, I'll give you an example. When I was in mortgage, I'd go to work, I'd come home. When we got turned on to Ryan stuff, I bought one book and I read it and I started implementing the things that were in that book. I would do that after I put my kids to bed at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I'd go into my office for about 2 hours and I would just study. I'd watch videos. I'd read books. So I'd watch all the free trainings that I could, but I read this one book. It was called Elevator to the Top. And I was like, man, this is great. So I started posting up. At this point, I'd already narrated and edited 40 books on Audible. So I took my radio experience, right? And I had done the work. I spent hours upon hours upon hours of editing and voicing and narrating and doing all that late nights until 2 a.m. And I would get up and go to the mortgage office at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock the next day and rinse and repeat. I did that for many cycles over and over again. I start implementing what's in the book and Elevator to the Top. I put something on Twitter and Ryan sees it. He hits me in the DM and he goes, hey, you narrate audiobooks? I was like, yeah. At this point, our company was already, like mortgage company was already contracting with Ryan. We're like, hey, we found this guy. I think he'd be cool. I'm like, awesome, because I just bought his book, right? So I implement and he hits me in the DM and goes, hey, would you be interested in narrating my audiobooks?
Wow.
Okay. So you know what I did? I did them for dirt fucking cheap just to get the opportunity. And Ryan became my first direct paid client.
Wow.
At the time, he had 6 audiobooks for me to do, like 6 books that he had already written. I thought, you know what? Those 40 books that I did before that, that's what I've been doing this whole time in preparation for this opportunity.
Wow.
I started back in 2014 with those books. I got 40 of them done by 2016. And 2016 is when I got contracted and Ryan became my first direct paid client.
Right. That's awesome.
And as a result, I've gotten books from everybody. I've gotten to edit and narrate different books for people. So.
And now, not only you getting to do a lot of work for other people, but you're actually getting high level clients, you know? And that reminds me, I was sharing this with somebody earlier today, but yesterday when I was on my Krav Maga class, you know, we were doing this drill that I didn't do before, you know, but this drill really pushed me to see how much I have learned, you know. And then eventually at some point I was just doing all these techniques that never in my head I thought I was able to do at this point, you know, because it's been practicing for 4 months so far, you know, that all that practice and practice and practice and practice. And sometimes you get frustrated because you're practicing, like you don't get it, right? But then when you're into that situation where you have all this pressure on you, like that muscle memory, you start kicking in and you start implementing, you start doing shit very easily. It's like your body just start act like, holy shit, this motherfucker is acting on his own, you know, and you start moving around and start getting shit done. So that was a great lesson for what you're saying, because you've been doing these audiobooks for a very long time, you know, you've been sharpening that axe, you've been like working, you've been implementing, you've been like failing, learning and rewriting and doing whatever you can to get better. And now that you got to that point where you develop the skills, that you can prove to yourself how easy it is, because now for you it's easy to do this shit, you know, these audiobooks. Like the other day that you were showing me how you're editing all the audio, it's like, holy fuck, how you learn this so fast, you know?
But yeah, and it was actually a culmination of all the experience, like like I said, you know, like 20 years, you know, almost 20 years in radio, and then, you know, implementing that stuff. Writing, that's another thing. I got really good at writing, but a lot of that comes from reading more books. Listen, Pedro, I hadn't read barely 10 books by the time I was 35 years old.
Wow.
So when I picked up those books, I just started slaying it. I started consuming them. As a result, that made me a better writer. So today, I work with clients who need copy for their funnels, and they need copy for their websites, right? I have pretty decent open rates from what the gods are telling me here at Break Free Academy. Like, so a lot of the copy that I write, like I write because I'm surrounded by excellent writers, people in our Apex network. Like you're a great example. Like, you know how to fucking slay some copy. Like, you know how to set the story up, lay it down, and go bam. It's almost like the mic drop. You're like, just like, that's what it's like. And I get hyped. I love to read your stuff. I'm like, holy shit, is that the same Pedro? That is not the same Pedro. You know, you and I would spend lots of time on the phone talking about things and how to craft offers. And then, you know, you get to that place where you hit that brick wall and go, you know what? It just clicked with me.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And that's why it's so important to keep doing the things that you're doing. It might not seem like it's going to pay you anything right now, but it's not intended to pay. Right now, you're putting in your reps. You're putting in those repetitions that you're going to need for the future. There's something for you. There's a project coming. There might be multiple projects. And then, like you said, like from a year ago, I see it. I see it. It's happening for everybody. I see it for people in our network. I see it for people that you and I both know. You see it in yourself, in your own personal life. You see it in Kayla's life, right? And I see it in my family, my children, my oldest, my youngest. Like, there's everybody developing. And it's a wonderful thing to see where we have the power to collapse time.
Yeah, that's very true.
We have that power, but it comes through massive, impactful repetitions immediately.
Exactly. And that's, you know what, I hate when people start talking like, oh, here's the secret to be successful. Here's the secret for this. I fucking hate that word secret. I hate it, you know, because I have this, I discovered, man, that there's no freaking secret. Well, you know what is your secret? What you just said, being consistent. You know, it doesn't matter how much you fuck it up. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you make. You know, like I was telling the example of my class yesterday, like I've been fucking things up for 4 months, not having a clue what I was doing. And yesterday realized that I know what the fuck I'm doing, you know, and I did it quick. And the same things apply for business. The same thing apply for everything in your life. You know, you just have to keep going and be consistent and push and push and push. And eventually you're going to get shit done, you know, and you're going to start ripping the results too. So
yeah, if you do that, you're going to fuck up. You're going to make mistakes. But the main thing is just go, okay, let me go clean that up. It's better to take action. And, you know, you and I have talked about that. I was like, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. Well, guess what? I started a podcast, but then I abandoned it, right?
Yeah.
I started a book, but then I abandoned it, right? Because I allow things to distract me, right? But here, you started your podcast. You're like, I know what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to make happen, and I'm going to execute it. Same thing. I've already got my next concept for a podcast in my mind. One thing I'll share with you, you know, if you're watching this, do not let anyone take you off your focus. If you're really attached to something, if they don't have their own podcast already, don't fucking listen to them. If they haven't written a book, don't fucking listen to them.
Yep.
Do you follow your instinct, because everything you need is right here. God gave it to you. This right here, that belongs to you. Nobody can take that, and nobody can own it unless you allow them to. As far as your body's concerned, if you need to reprogram your body to do different things, the mind needs to tell the body, hey, you're not in charge.
Yeah.
Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about that. You need to go in and reprogram your body and say, you need to stop drinking too much. You need to stop being addicted to food, to porn, or to whatever that is, to abusive, toxic relationships. You need to stop being married to or addicted to being lazy. You need to get the fuck up off your ass and go do something, and do it now as if your life depends on it. You know, and it's I know it's a little intense, but like
that's so powerful, man. That's amazing. We
got to go there, right?
Yeah.
We got to go there. We have to pretend that it's a life or death situation. We have to psych ourselves out. We have to activate that fear factor that's been implemented into us. We have that gift. We have that gift, our reptilian brains. Shock your system.
Yeah.
You got to shock your system. Like, if I don't do this, somebody's losing a finger today.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you got to take it to that level. I used to do those kind of things in my head when I was younger. It was dark, but, you know, father was a Marine. So like we were exposed to a lot of stuff. The thing I'll tell you is it's good. It'll psych you out, but it'll suppress you and make you self-accountable so that you can hit those goals, take those repetitions. And you know what? You're going to fall short. Like Pedro just said, you're going to fuck shit up. You might fuck up a lot of shit, but here's the thing. Everything can be modified and made better if you keep doing the work.
Wow, man. I think somebody's been looking for good advice for 2021 since we're still in January and people still trying to figure out the rest of their year, man. I mean, I think this is the best advice somebody can hear right now, man. You know,
You know
because
what?
it's very powerful and really appreciate you sharing that because that's what people needs to hear, man. You fucking have to do it. There's no option, you know. It doesn't matter who's in office right now. You just have to keep going.
That's it. And I'm going to tell you, like, you might think quitting time's at 6 or 9 or whatever. Don't let yourself off the hook right now. Don't. I listened to the inauguration today. I don't care what side of the political leanings you're on. It doesn't fucking matter. But I go back and listen to the language. Listen to the message and listen to the language. Here's what I listen for when I hear people talking. Are they saying anything negative?
Nope.
Are they saying anything positive?
Yes.
Right? I'm listening for both of those things. Is the language vague? I listen for that too. So, like, go back and listen to the language. It's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't moved by it, but listen to the language and be cognizant of the things that you say. Because whatever you want, you can speak it into existence.
Absolutely. That's so true, you know.
I mean, these beards don't show up by themselves, right, Pedro?
No, I manifest that motherfucker.
Yeah, me too. Look at that. Even the white stripes right here. That comes from
I know, man.
experience.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to level up your game. That shit's too short, man.
All right, so I need to just pull out what's under here. See, I got like undercover beard. I got it growing up under here. Look, I'm gonna have to like start bringing it out here, right?
Yeah.
You know what I learned though? Like I look like cacheton, like it's cheeky, like chubby cheeks. That's how we'd say it in English. Like, look like chubby cheeks. So
That's funny, man.
I gotta.
But anyway, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really powerful, man. Thank you for sharing that, you know, because that's the whole point of this, you know, like share real experience, man. Share real stories about people like you, you know, that have gone through some shit and that have developed the skills to just keep going and be successful and all that kind of stuff, you know. So I really appreciate you sharing all that stuff, man.
You're welcome. You know, one of the best lessons and one of the few good lessons that I learned was from the Marine Corps, and is adapt, improvise, and overcome. And this is taught too in my family, and this is a pretty, I don't want to say a graphic analogy, but I just want you to understand too where I come from, because it's very indicative of how you need to approach life when it comes to anything that you do. It doesn't matter if
Right.
you're trying to develop a new skill set, if you're contemplating or discerning whether or not you need to stay in a relationship, if you need to leave a partnership at work or find a new job, whatever that may be. But think about it like this. So when I was a kid, I learned that if we got into a fight, one of two things would happen. Number one, if we got our asses whooped, we'd get our asses whooped later on when we got home. Number two, we weren't to throw the first punch. However, if we were forced to defend ourselves, we were to take that interaction to the point where there was blood or until they tapped out and truly tapped out. It was savage.
Wow.
It was pretty savage. Yeah. It was like, short of death, it was understood that like you do not come away from that fight without taking an ear, right? So to speak. And that was the mentality that we had as kids. We were taught like that. So nowadays, thank God, we don't live in a world like that. But I'll tell you this, if you use that mentality to approach every single thing that you're doing in your life, you're going to have far better results. Don't be afraid to bleed. Don't be afraid to get cut. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. And don't be afraid to lose, because on the back end, there's going to be some type of resolution. Remove the fear and just be committed to that intention and that focus. Like even to this day, like we know that no matter what comes our way, we are committed. We go all in and we do what we say we're going to do consistently every single time.
So true.
Yeah, it is.
That's so powerful. Yeah. Amazing, man. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I think if somebody's listening to this right now, man, or in the future, I mean, that's one of the best advices someone can give to somebody else, you know, because that's the real thing that people needs to hear. Not all this bullshit of like, oh yeah, just manifest shit and shit's going to show up. No, motherfucker, you have to do the work. no matter what. Yeah, you can manifest things into your life, but it requires work and dedication and your commitment to make shit happen, you know? But anyway, man, I really appreciate you taking the time for being on the show today, man. Where people can find you if they want to reach out to you, bro?
Okay, you can find me on Instagram at Danny Galvez 2, and hit me with a DM so I know you're not like fake or anything. And then you can hit me on Facebook at Danny Galvez, or you can go to dannyslinks.phonesites.com. That's Danny's Links, DANNYS, links, LIKNS.phonesites.com. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming to the show, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. I'm grateful. Thank you, Esther, for being in the show.
Esther, he just invited me today. I know, but listen, I can't. She's mad because she didn't get invited. So it's okay. Calm down.
Whatever.
Baby.
Yeah. Calm down, Esther.
I need to get one of these for you. I think you need to check on your show.
Okay, you should get me one.
No, I'll get you one.
But anyway, for you guys listening, if you enjoyed the show, make sure to share it with somebody, put it on social media, tag me, or whatever you can do to help us spread the word. And make sure you leave that review on iTunes or subscribe to the YouTube channel so more people can find the show and get access to all this valuable information. I will see you guys on the next episode. In the meantime, be safe, keep working hard, and cheers. Later, guys. Later, man. Hey guys, thank you for watching. This show was brought to you by the Marketing Brewing Company, an industry-leading marketing provider and coaching firm. If this episode have provided with valuable information for you and your business, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you know somebody who needs to hear this, share it with them. Send me a text message, a DM, put it on social media, whatever you can do to spread the word. And lastly, if you're a brewery owner ready to take your business to the next level, make sure you head to marketingbrewingco.com and fill out the form to get started and get your free assessment of your current marketing and sales strategies. I will see you guys for the next episode. In the meantime, cheers.